It is the highest profile true crime case in the nation. November 13th, 2022. The brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students. But many of the details and legal filings are sealed and hidden from the public. And now that the case has been brought into a public courtroom, information about exactly what happened has become less public. The accused mass murderer denies being involved and claims to have an alibi. He also claims the grand jury process was unfair and the prosecutor committed misconduct. But that's all we know. The details of those allegations, like so much of this case, have been shielded from the community. The same community that was put into a state of complete shock and fear after the murders happened. The same community that pulled together to find leads and share information with investigators to help catch an alleged killer. So now, the question is, will the public get to see and hear what happens in the public courtroom during this public trial? Tonight, we assess the state of this case, the state of the evidence, and the state of the victims' families who have suffered more than anyone through all of this as we investigate the Idaho students' murder case and trial.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. It's a huge case. It's the biggest case that we have. But I want everyone to understand as we begin this hour tonight that our courtrooms are public. Okay? You, me, anyone. You can go down to your local courthouse, federal courthouse, regular state courthouse, and walk into courtrooms and see what's happening. I mean, they're ours. They belong to us. They don't belong to the judge. They don't belong to a prosecutor. They don't belong to the lawyers. They don't belong to the sheriff. They belong to us, we the people. It's our government. It's a branch of government. It's ours. It belongs to us. Now, one of the reasons that Court TV is able to get cameras inside courtrooms is because many states believe, like I do, that courtrooms are public, but not everyone can get down there. Some people have jobs. Some people just can't make it there. And what the cameras do is allow the public to see what is happening in our government. That's it. Our cameras become your eyes and ears. Our cameras replace you getting in the car or getting in a plane or getting on a bus or getting on a train and heading down to your local courthouse to see what's happening. Cameras in the courtroom allow you to do that, us to do that. Because again, they're public, and public for a reason. Now, this becomes an issue in every case, with every defendant. I want to get a fair trial. And every defendant is entitled to a fair trial, but not necessarily a secret trial. And it's interesting to see the reaction of many criminal defendants and their defense teams about how they react to a case when all of a sudden it becomes notorious or high profile and people are invested in finding out and seeing if justice will be done in the case, whatever they believe justice is. But again, it's not like these trials are happening in his courtroom or the judge's courtroom or the prosecutor's courtroom. It's the public's courtroom where all this is taking place. So, let's go back in history, because we have history here. And I know this is a big case right now, but I've covered some big cases through the years. Former football player, a former mother, and I don't know what the other guy ever did. I don't even know if he ever had a job. He was a community watch person, self-appointed. 3 very public trials, extremely public. O.J. Simpson, that woman, and George Zimmerman. Couldn't have been more public. There were headlines, there were news crews, there were reporters, members of the public digging up every detail in these cases. And they happened in different years and different times, but they were so public. And these 3 cases were enormous, enormous cases. The one involving O.J. Simpson was the biggest. I mean, it's bigger than big. Yet, in these very public trials, where things were filed in the courtroom and people were allowed to see them, and where motions were made and cameras were there, and there was an openness where you understood what the issues were, and the discussions were done in an open courtroom. In these three very public trials, I think the three defendants would agree that they got very fair trials. Because all three of them, not guilty. Not guilty. And I would have thought after these three trials that that whole conversation would have ended, that people would understand that a case can be high profile, in the news, everywhere, anywhere, people talking about it, people giving their opinions, but at the end of the day, we trust our juries to listen to the judge and base their verdicts on what they see and hear and what they don't see and hear inside the courtroom. What evidence is presented, what evidence isn't there. And if these three could get a fair trial, who were all vilified in the media, were convicted by public opinion, all were found not guilty in a court of law. That somehow, some way, when a trial happens somewhere else, everyone's like, oh my goodness gracious, how on earth is this person going to get a fair trial? Nobody's allowed to see everything. Let's hide it all. And unfortunately, I'm seeing this happen in Idaho. In the Doomsday Cult Killer case, and now in the case in the Idaho students' murders. It's mind-boggling to me that everything is being like hidden in secret, like this has never been done before. Anyway, for those of you who don't know the story and the history, there was a time where people were speaking publicly about this case because they were searching for a killer. Chanley Painter has more for us tonight.
The probable cause affidavit in the case against the accused killer of 4 University of Idaho students pieces together the movements of the suspect vehicle and coordinating cell phone location data beginning in the early morning hours of November 13th. At 2:42 a.m., the affidavit alleges that Bryan Kohberger's phone places him likely at his apartment on the WSU campus where he was a PhD student studying and teaching criminology. At 2:44 a.m., Kohberger's vehicle and cell phone are on the move. Police say his white Hyundai Elantra is spotted on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Nevada Street at Stadium Way. According to the affidavit, it was here in this area of the WSU campus where surveillance video and Kohberger's cell phone placed him here around 2:47 a.m. According to the affidavit, he spent several minutes in this area where he allegedly turned off his cell phone before heading out of town toward Moscow, Idaho. By 2:53 a.m., Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra is observed heading in the direction of Moscow, Idaho. At 3:26 a.m., the affidavit then places Kohberger's vehicle, now in the town of Moscow, in this residential neighborhood on Indian Hills Drive. This happens to be a road directly overlooking the Moscow Police Department. The Elantra is picked up on surveillance video moving west past the 700 block of Indian Hills. At 3:28 a.m., video shows the vehicle on Steiner Avenue at Highway 95 as it made its way towards the King Road neighborhood where the victims lived. Then from 3:29 a.m. to 4:20 a.m., the suspect vehicle, the white Hyundai Elantra, is observed multiple times on video passing by 1122 King Road during the alleged time of the murders before being seen on video speeding away on Walenta Drive. The probable cause affidavit states that the car likely exited the neighborhood at Palouse River Drive and Conestoga Drive, a road that eventually leads to Pullman, Washington. About 2 hours after he allegedly turned off his cell phone, police say Kohberger turned it back on here near Blaine, Idaho. It's about 10 to 15 minutes south of Moscow, a rural community off Highway 95, and it has its own cell tower. According to the affidavit, from 4:50 a.m. to 5:26 a.m., Kohberger's phone movements show him allegedly moving south towards Genesee, Idaho, and west towards Uniontown, Washington. Kohberger Kohberger may have taken a well-known back road called Thorn Creek Road at this point in his route towards his apartment. These are all very isolated roads, but Thorn Creek Road is known to be even more desolate. Police allege Kohberger eventually made his drive back into Pullman, Washington from the quiet road of Johnson, where his vehicle was picked up on this security camera, the first time a camera captured his Hyundai after the murders were committed. By 5:30 a.m., police tracked the movements of Kohberger's cell phone and vehicle back to his apartment.
And that was information that was the big release initially, the affidavit, the arrest affidavit of the suspected killer. But since then, like, motions have been filed, things have been sealed, and one side is fighting to keep any sort of electronic reporting, television cameras out of the courtroom. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in Idaho. So joining us tonight from Boise, Idaho, trial lawyer, former prosecutor, former Idaho Attorney General Dave Leroy is with us. Also in Boise, retired Deputy Prosecutor, Chief of Special Crimes for Ada County, Idaho, Gene Fisher. Thank you both for being here. Dave, I'll start with you. What do the folks in Idaho not trust jurors to follow the judge's instructions? Do they not do voir dire when they pick a jury to make sure that they can be fair and impartial? I mean, I would think the folks in Idaho would be more trustworthy than most states in this country. But am I crazy?
No, I think not. We regard our jurors as very just and appropriate to the task. And even before we get to the courtroom, our jurors in high-profile cases will have a juror questionnaire, sometimes many pages long, to try to screen out from the preliminary panel those that do have an opinion, do know something about the case. But we do have a very unique jurisdiction here, much different than Los Angeles. Latah County is a county of about 40,000 people. The campus has about 12,000 students, and this situation utterly shocked that rural community. Judge has not ruled yet, and perhaps he'll run against the counter and give us a jury trial from inside that courtroom. But frankly, I predict that ultimately both the prosecution and the defense will request a change of venue in this case.
But here's my thing, Gene. Like, everything is secret, and we don't want cameras and et cetera. Why would that be? Why would the folks of Idaho not want to have a transparent judicial system? Why would the folks of Idaho not trust their jurors to follow the instructions of the court?
Well, I think those are two very different questions. In fact, I don't think that they align at all. The jurors do follow the instructions, and I think that we have had plenty of instances where our jurors have done exactly what they've been asked to do. The issue of having an open court or having cameras in the courtroom doesn't make it a secret. In fact, in the Vallow case, courtroom, it was publicized to the press in a press pool room where they could see it live. It wasn't
the press could see it live.
The press was able to watch it.
But the people could. See, here's the thing. You have someone like me telling you what happened in a courtroom versus someone actually seeing it. I'm not breaking news tonight, but there are some people that are skeptical of the media as well. So, you give them that first-hand see and hear the evidence, you'll trust the verdict better, whatever that verdict is. It just seems like transparency, which is what they do down in Florida, creates more trust in our system. So you understand when the jury comes back and says not guilty, you understand why they may come back guilty. And I don't know. I understand there's some self-interest because Court TV, we put cameras in the courtroom. We cover the trials anyway. That's not going to stop us from covering big cases. But at the end of the day, I just think all these motions that are being filed under seal, like, what are we doing? We're like hiding everything, and it's not an open, public trial and case. To me, it doesn't make sense. Now, there's one other thing that doesn't make sense to me, and this I really need your help on, okay? So there's an issue involving an expert for the defense. And she's like a genealogy expert talking about DNA and tracing, people down through DNA. And there was an argument in court between the defense and the prosecutor. First, we're going to hear from the defense, then we're going to hear from the prosecutor, because something happened here that I don't know if I've ever seen before. Let's take a listen first.
The other motion, Your Honor, has to do with what happens to witnesses that the defense might call. The court will call Gabrielle Vargas testified last Friday. In our hearing last night, she was visited by 2 FBI agents and interrogated about her testimony and the timing of the declaration. That, in our view, impacts Mr. Kohberger's due process rights and his rights to effective assistance of counsel, and that motion will also be filed later today.
Over the weekend, Ms. Vargas, after she testified, engaged in some electronic communications with others in the genetic genealogy field. Those indicated, as it was reported to the investigators, to our investigators, that she was relating on some of the things that she testified to in court. When we heard that, I reached out to the investigators and said, can we find out what's going on? And the FBI indeed undertook the investigation. And preliminary reports are that Ms. Vargas claims that some of what was in her declaration, she inadvertently agreed to her side without fully reading it. We're documenting that so we can expose it to Ms. Taylor and to the court.
Okay, so I'm going to put my understanding of this is that it seems it was an expert witness for the defense who testified about this genealogy stuff, and then like the next day, the prosecutor sends 2 FBI agents to knock on her door and question her. Is this unusual, Dave?
Indeed it is. The testimony of witnesses and the veracity of witnesses tested on cross-examination is a very frequent thing, but having an expert this early in the case either allegedly recant or being questioned by the FBI about whether she was fully aware of what she signed under oath is highly unusual. So again, I see this whole case as developing over the next several months as a battle of procedural this and that's. The evidence here is allegedly very compelling, very strong, very tight, very scientifically based. We're going to see a lot of unique procedural battles in this case, this probably being an opening round of highly different nature.
Is this improper, Gene? Is this an act of intimidation? I mean, the FBI knocks on your door, you're going to be like a little, oh, why is the FBI knocking at my door? And it's an expert witness for the other side. I mean...
Well, it's an expert witness for the other side who recanted what she had just testified to. The stakes in this case couldn't be higher. It would be derelict for the prosecutor to not go and find out, did she testify to something wrong? Is it not right? Is there something here that they should know about? Remember, the prosecution always has the duty to disclose any information that might be that might be helpful to the defense. On the other hand, they also have the right to question witnesses who have testified and then come back and recant to make sure where is this coming from. And they would have been derelict if they didn't. They didn't threaten her. They asked,
right.
what happened here?
But I'm wondering, if it's an expert witness, is it different? Do you kind of go through counsel and say, hey, counsel, I'd like to set up a deposition or an interview with your expert? I'm trying to understand that process. I've never seen this before. Dave, do you think that that's how it usually goes? Or is this because it's being perceived and portrayed as an alleged act of intimidation, like you're intimidating this witness?
Well, or an alleged act of attorney sloppiness or activities of all kinds that combine together to put in false or suspect testimony, both in writing, it appears, in an affidavit, and perhaps in the courtroom. So obviously something that should be cleared up immediately, obviously something that probably has some blame both on the expert and perhaps on those who authored or sponsored an affidavit as just and truthful.
So this is a key witness. Gabrielle Vargas is her name. And she's, I think the defense is using her to try to get that DNA, the original DNA match that was used in this case to get the arrest, kind of tossed out. Take a look. She's talking about the database tools have known loopholes that allow a genealogist to see matches that have explicitly declined to participate in law enforcement matching. This is not a glitch in the programming causing this by accident. It is a standard feature within the tools that essentially tricks the system into displaying all matches as opposed to only those who have consented to law enforcement matching. This is not a loophole, nor is this something you'll stumble upon. Using the tool this way requires effort and knowledge. And I guess the point of her, Gene, was that these sites now, you have to opt in order to allow law enforcement to use whatever DNA you have put into these systems in the different sites where you try to find your ancestors. If there's sort of rules like that that are broken by law enforcement, could that get the evidence tossed out, or does it have to be something more than just a rule by the company?
Yeah, I just think that this is such a hugely unfolding field right now, that there's all kinds of new laws that are being made and judgments and determinations that are being made by the court all across the nation on this. But right now, the rulings have mostly been in favor, I think they've all been in favor of the state and a number of state courts about the genealogy charts and how far the defense has been allowed to go to actually try and bring in other what the court has determined not relevant evidence. So I think that right now this is such an evolving area and will continue to be such an evolving area. It's an incredible tool for cold cases. But the issue of how far back they get to talk about genealogy and seemingly unrelated matters is yet to be determined.
All right, well, and so this is a real issue. But what you're telling me, which I think is good news for prosecutors, is that right now things are kind of rolling their way, that this should be still permitted. Okay, Dave Leroy, Gene Fisher, we're just beginning this case, so I know we're going to call on you again and again and again. So thank you so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we got more to get to here. We're going to take a look at the evidence in this case and the crucial piece of evidence that I think is the game over evidence, plus coming up next hour.
In the low country of South Carolina, shocking new allegations against the court clerk Becky Hill, who was in charge of the jury during Alec Murdaugh's double murder trial and has written a book about the case. Tonight, we hear from the lawyer representing the jurors who the defense says were improperly influenced by the clerk.
Well, I can't talk about attorney-client privilege information. I can tell you that when I shared with him the affidavits, he's a lawyer, he was astonished, he was shaking, he was in disbelief, and he thanked Mr. Harpootlian, Mr. Barber, and myself for spending our weekends on dirt roads in Colleton County.
Bradley Caraway,
charged with murder and leaving the scene of an accident.
Trapped underneath 3,000 pounds of mangled Honda.
The Fled the Scene murder trial. Live coverage weekdays at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
These are the cases that captivated the world.
Couldn't keep my life straight.
They were killed by their own children. Court TV Legendary Trials. Go to courttv.com/legendary trials to find out how to watch.
Break that down, if you were to take a DNA test of Ancestry and want to upload to GEDmatch, when you input that file, it's going to ask you, do you consent to law enforcement matching? And if you hit no, and I am working a violent crime non-DOE case, I should not be able to see that you are a match to my unknown DNA contributor.
You said should not.
Should not.
Does it happen anyway?
It does. It has.
That's Gabriela Vargas, expert witness for the defense in the Idaho student murder case. She's crucial She's a crucial witness here because this is one way the defense is trying to get the DNA evidence tossed from this case. And this is the same witness who, after she testified there on the stand, next day the FBI went down there, or a couple days later, FBI knocked on her door and interviewed her. Defense described it as an interrogation. I wasn't there, I don't know. But let's take a listen to more of her testimony, because remember, this is how investigators develop that probable cause to make the arrest. Let's watch.
There there are a lot of tools that are available in GEDmatch. These tools allow you to make comparisons of two or more people and how they relate to each other and share DNA. One of these tools allows you to compare many matches, not only against your DNA profile that you're working, but also against all of their matches to see if their matches match each other. When you utilize this tool, there is a feature that you can edit the list of kits that are originally selected. I put the kit number in, I run a tool called One to Many, and it's gonna show the top 500 matches that this subject has. I then would go to utilize the manipulation tool, the loophole. You would then go click the top match and run their matches. So the top match of your subject's top match, you would run their matches, okay? Once you run their matches, there is a tool that allows you to edit that list of matches. So we're looking at the matches of the subject's top relative, not the subject's matches, right? When you edit the kit list, if you put the subject's kit number into this tool that you're going to now analyze, these matches, it tricks the system and allows you to see matches that you wouldn't have seen when you ran your initial match list.
Again, this is a witness talking about how law enforcement can find people in these DNA genealogy charts, even though they may have not opted in to allow law enforcement to search for them. Big part of this case, DNA is the game over evidence for prosecutors. Joining us tonight, Jacksonville, Alabama, forensic death investigator, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan, back with us. Yeah, the judges got to make some decisions here, et cetera, on all of this, but the bottom line is this is an incredible tool that didn't exist years ago, but now it seems like there may be some bumps in the road if you don't have people opting in to allow law enforcement to search their results.
Yeah, and it leads down this dark road of reasonable doubt, doesn't it? As to the validity of the test itself. Remember then, and you know, you've got a very smart audience. Maybe they've heard about Daubert and Fry, and you begin to think about these tests, these hoops essentially that you have to go through in order to validate scientific testing. And here's the rub. You're essentially going into a database that is created by a private entity. This is not like something that is being utilized, say, for instance, with CODIS, that is held by the FBI and by the feds, and you look into that database. You're talking about something that is outside of that purview. So then it draws into question the validity of it. Are there any controls in place? How has this been kind of walked through the process and demonstrated time and time again in court over the years. And you don't have that history here, Ben. And that's one of the things that's kind of bringing this up at this point. You know, and when you have an expert witness that's talking about, I mean, let's face it, she's talking about manipulating a test to a certain degree, that you can, you know, get a peek into areas that otherwise you would not have the opportunity to do so, particularly with this database that she's talking about. It can raise some pretty ominous questions.
So let's get to the affidavit, because this is, to me, this is game over stuff. The Idaho State Lab located a single source of male DNA, the suspect profile, left on the button snap of the knife sheath.
Yes.
Pennsylvania agents recovered the trash from the Kohberger family residence located in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The Idaho State Lab reported that a DNA profile obtained from the trash and the DNA profile obtained from the sheath identified a male as not being excluded as the biological father of the suspect profile. So I've got in my hand here a sheath like that, Joseph, and I'm looking at it and I see a button snap here.
Yep.
It's obvious if you're going to open it or close it, you know, you can get some DNA on it right there. Is there any other way that DNA from the suspect could have gotten on there? Like, is there any other innocent way that it ends up on a knife sheath beneath the body of the victims?
Okay, if we're going to play this out, let's just say that an individual randomly walks into a sporting goods store, picks up that knife because they're interested. Maybe they want to purchase it. Maybe it's the suspect. They take that button that's on there and they actuate it. If you flip that button open, Ben, that underside of that button has kind of a sharp edge. If you flick it up with your thumb, it's not really sharp, but it's well defined. You can kind of scrape off dead skin cells.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I can feel
that.
the scraping. Yep.
Yeah, and if you're actuating that thing, let's just say you're standing there at a counter in some sporting goods store, and you're flipping this thing open over and over again just to see what it's like. Can I snap it open easily? Yeah, I suppose you could put that forth as a potential theory. However, this sheath that was found at the scene, Ben, let me throw a number to you. They're talking about a number that is mind-blowing here when you talk about the DNA probability. 5.37 octillion. Let that sink in, all right? That's what you're looking at when it comes to Bryan Kohberger. And that's where you talk about a game over scenario. But you get in, the devil is in the details. When you begin to go through this analysis, going back to what we were earlier talking about and what Gene so effectively said in the first segment, you know, this is new. This is new territory, and it happens to be, you know, being utilized in arguably one of the most high-profile cases that, you know, the nation has seen in years and years. So there's going to be a lot of scrutiny over this. But yeah, I think that a reasonable person would ask that question. How in the world did that sheath with his DNA wind up in that bed with those young women, immediately adjacent, mind you, to the leg of one that we're finding out right now? And again, it's mind-blowing. The numbers are mind-blowing. But you know, as the Attorney General mentioned, this is going to be a case that is fought procedurally. I think, you know, what steps were taken along the way. There's so much that we don't know at this point.
There's a ton we don't know, and yeah, eventually they have to go public with it inside at some point. We shall see. Yeah. Judge Scott Morgan, out of time for tonight. Great to see you. Body Bags Podcast. Good to see you, buddy. We'll see you again really, really soon. When we come back, folks, we're going to check in and see how the families of the victims are doing. Don't go anywhere.
I started hearing these stories about murder and stuff.
I'm about to be the biggest drug dealer that you can become.
Oh my God, are they starting a war with me or what?
I'm not gonna lie, it felt good to be a gangster.
She just points the gun out of my face.
Boom, 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 boom.
Just shoots me.
We knew that what we were doing had consequences.
but we just didn't care. Vice on Court TV. Weeknights at 7, 6 Central. Only on Court TV.
I want every parent to be able to have an opportunity to speak about their child and the nuances of what made them special. And then our ultimate goal is where people remember these kids and remember how bad this situation was, but it's them that they remember and not the person who did it. This person needs to disappear when it's over and said with. They're not important. They're just a mistake that we let fall through our society's cracks, and we corrected that, and now we can, you know, really kind of assess how much we lost when we lost these children.
That's Steve Gonsalves. He is the father of Kelly Gonsalves, one of the 4 victims in the Idaho student murders case. And joining us now, the attorney representing the Gonsalves family, Shannon Gray, joins us again. Shannon, thanks so much. Great to see you tonight. How's everybody holding up? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like this is going to be a long, long process.
Well, I mean, I think everyone was hopeful that the trial would go in October, but I think everyone was prepared that it wouldn't. So it's kind of a mixed bag. You know, you were hopeful that it might go in October, but realistically, we kind of knew that the chances of that going was pretty low. So you get your hopes up a little bit, but now we know that, you know, it's going to be delayed for probably several months. There's a lot of evidentiary motions that the court has to sort through. So hopefully when they get through these motions and a lot of the issues that they're facing right now, they'll be ready to roll. So
let me ask you, Shannon, and I've been talking about this a lot this hour, that a lot of this has been sealed and secret and shielded from the public. And I'm wondering if the families are in the same boat as the rest of the public. Like when things are revealed and when they will be revealed in the court, as we are seeing it for the first time, will that be the first time for the families as well to learn some of the details and facts of this case?
Yeah, we don't know anything about the case. There hasn't been any information that's really been shared with us that we're privy to in any way. So, you know, when there are hearings that are done or motions that are filed, that's all new information for us. So we're getting it and taking it in just as the public's taking it in, because we're not privy to any new information. So,
and how have communications been like I understand you're representing the family. Do they have advocates as well helping these families together work through this process, or has that basically fallen on your lap in all of this?
Well, we have there's a victim's advocate that from the Latah County Prosecutor's Office that reaches out to us to give us some updates on things, but it's mainly my job to guide the family through everything, and I'm more than happy to do it. They are a great family. All the families that I've spoken to and are just really good people, and they're always going to be a part of my life. And so I'm more than happy to guide them through this process and make sure that they know exactly what's going on and what to expect. So.
And when all this happens, I presume they're all going to be there, and will they be permitted to be in the courtroom the whole time? I don't know if they're going to be witnesses at any point. Do you know anything about that yet?
Yeah, I don't know anything about them being witnesses in this case as of right now. You know, everyone will be in the courtroom during the trial. There may be days that they might want to skip so they can, you know, keep the memory of what they have alive and it not be tainted in some way by evidence that might be presented at trial. But I'll be there, or family members will be there every day during this trial until it ends. So.
Well, Shannon, nice to see you tonight. Please give our best to the family, and we'll continue to cover this as we get closer and closer, hopefully to a trial and hopefully to some sense of justice. Shannon Gray joined us tonight.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shannon.